Now I'd love to turn to UN reform, which has been a big topic for quite some time. The UN Security Council, which is kind of the main one of the main bodies of the UN, has 5 permanent members: the United States, the UK, France, Russia, and China. But today, when you look at who the powers are, they all argue that they should be represented as well. And then there's also arguments that the Security Council does not have a permanent seat for an African country. Could you both weigh in and talk about UN reform and where it stands?
So it's interesting that, you preface this as UN reform and then you went immediately to the hardest one, right? So I'll start there. If you think that the decisions that are made are not legitimate because of who's making them, then that's one way to erode trust. And I think that's been at the heart of the discussions around Security Council reform. Are there ways for us to build trust if we can't get around the who gets a seat or at least veto power in the Security Council? So there's a whole series of things that have to happen around reform, and it's not just about the legitimacy of who gets to make those decisions. And, I think part of reform is not only who's making the decisions and how good are those decisions, but what then happens? Are they actually implemented? And so when you look at some of the crises in the past that have caused a lot of reputational issues for the UN, it's in part not only because of the bad decisions or the decisions that weren't made, but also because the UN didn't have the funding to implement those decisions, or because the UN didn't have the troops, to send to the places that they said they wanted to. So there's a whole series of things that have to happen around reform, and it's not just about the legitimacy of who gets to make those decisions.
I think, it's interesting, UN reform, it's been almost constant. I don't think we should discredit that. There's lots of things that have happened that have shown that the UN can change. But, I think the upshot of this evolution is, it's very hard to change the structures. And I think what's happened as a result is, you've only had, 3 occasions in which the UN Charter has been, substantively changed. And as a result, we've been tinkering. We're constantly tinkering. And it's always about composition and structures, etc. And I think no amount of reform ultimately can make up for a lack of leadership.